The MVP odds are out, and Jayson Tatum is... Where is he on this list? Oh, there he is. Way down there? What? Let's talk about that right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Juice, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Karalis on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started, raising business, how we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I got you every Monday through Friday this week and next week before we go into 3 days a week for August and September. But end of September, actually, I keep saying like October, but end of September, because the Celtics training camp starts early because they've got 2 preseason games in Abu Dhabi early. So we're almost there. We've got a couple weeks, one more week really, of full 5-day-a-week podcasts. Then 6-7 weeks of 3 days a week. And even those might be an extra one. And then we're right back to it. The Celtics will be back very soon. So subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking. I'm John Karalis. Used to play. Now I'm covering the Celtics as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. You can still pick up my book, Built Different, special commemorative book celebrating the Celtics championship run. Go check that out wherever you get your books, bookstores, local stores, Walgreens, wherever, whatever, in the New England area. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase of last-minute tickets. We're getting into, yesterday was the win totals. Today, FanDuel has the postseason awards odds, and here we are again, where what are the Celtics? Are they a super team? Are they not a super team? Joel Embiid says they are, but these odds, these postseason awards odds, doesn't make it seem like they are. So let's talk about it, and let's talk about it with Tom Westerholm.
What up?
What's up? What's up with you? What's up with you is what I want.
Oh, man. I got, not much, man. I got my dogs panting at me here. It stinks. And other than that, I'm doing great.
Great. Well, that was wonderful small talk. Let's get into the meat of the podcast, where we'll get into Coach of the Year stuff later. Well, there's a lot of odds out here with FanDuel. Their postseason awards odds. And it struck me as Joel Embiid is on Twitter talking about, the Celtics have a super team. The MVP odds are out. Number 1, Jokic. Number 2, Doncic. Number 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 4, Joel Embiid. Number 5, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Number 6, still no Jayson Tatum. This is Anthony Edwards. Jalen Brunson is at 7. Wembanyama is at 8. There's Tatum, 9th in the MVP odds at 28-1. You'd think that after a championship run that maybe the odds would be a little bit higher, but nope. They still don't think that Tatum is going to be a legit MVP candidate. I think that's a little kind of weird. I don't know. What's your initial reaction to hearing how far down the list Tatum is?
So we've talked about this before, obviously, but it's like, you can see it, it's like, okay, so the Celtics team is really good. And that's, that just like is, undeniable, right? It's funny when, I know we're going to talk about this eventually, but it's funny to hear Embiid say, Celtics have a super team. I would average 50 if I was single covered. It's like, okay, but one of the guys who is also double covered has figured out how to play out of that for what that's worth. A guy, I feel like that. We'll get there, but I think to me the comparison is always the Spurs, right? Where you look at like, okay, they had they had like kind of a dynastic run where they had they had a lot of good players who were all kind of sprinkled onto that team. But even on that, it's like Tim Duncan, I believe, I was just looking this up. I believe he won 2 MVPs. Like he won MVPs. So it's not like, that team. I think it'll be interesting because I think that there will have to be at some point during the season, if the Celtics have another regular season that's not exactly like last year, but if it's similar, right, where it's like, wow, this is the best team again. And if they have another regular season like that, at some point during the year, there's going to have to be a Tatum MVP conversation. And it will be interesting to see because it's like, it just depends how much that catches on, because a lot of times the MVP narrative kind of gets decided over a, 2 to 3 to 4 week span, right? Where it's like, you think like Derrick Rose's MVP, right? It was like that kind of got decided over a specific stretch of the season. And, it was like he was in the lead and everybody else had to kind of catch up to him. It'll be interesting to see if the Celtics have another great regular season, if Tatum gets that spike, how long will that spike still have some traction? Can that carry him through to the end? I don't know. That's kind of what I'll be. That's my initial thought when I see him 9th right now. It's like, I mean, for one thing, I don't know if you're a gambling type, I don't think that's the worst. Don't like bet your house on it, but you like low odds. It's like, I don't know. It's definitely not impossible that Jayson Tatum's going to win MVP. Like, I don't know.
If we're sitting here saying like right now it's July, we're recording this on July 24th, that Tatum at 28-1 or plus 2,800 that's a value play, right? You can open up the FanDuel app and make sure you guys are gambling responsibly. I'm not advocating, I'm not telling you how to bet, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, hey, 20 now in July, if you can get them at 28-1, you never know what's going to happen. You throw $10 down and that's, $280. That's a decent little payout if you want. But it's still, I can't figure this out. Is it because Tatum is so willing to sacrifice it and they're saying the strength of this team, and this is true, the strength of why this team won is not because Tatum is the best player on the team, which he kind of is, but also Jaylen was the MVP in the conference finals and finals. Jaylen, by the way, plus 15,000, so 150-1 at 18th in the MVP odds. So we're focusing on Tatum, but I don't know if the Jaylen Brown disrespect is even bigger after the series that he had. But either way, to have the best team, there you would expect. Okay, we maybe downplayed the individual accomplishments. Tatum was, had the best passing season of his career, did a lot of other things, he willingly sacrificed. Maybe the discussion would be he's doing so much for this team and it's the bigger picture that makes him an MVP candidate. Maybe that hasn't kind of set in yet. But at the same time, it's because Derek White is so good and because Drew Holiday is so good and because Porzingis has been so good and Horford and all of these guys, like the strength of this team is the team.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't jive with like, well, then Joe Mazzulla should be getting more love. Right. And he didn't, so I get the whole. We've talked about this before when everybody was kind of passed over for postseason awards, and now they're similarly getting downplayed in the odds. It just feels like which narrative are people going to go with, and maybe that's what the gamblers are looking for. Maybe the simple answer, and we'll take a break. Let's chew on this for a second. Maybe the simple answer is, the guys at FanDuel and the odds makers are sitting saying, like, we still think that enough people are going to disrespect the Celtics that they're not going to pick Tatum. We're setting it at a number where people are going to be like, ooh, that is a place where I will put my money. But then also there are other bets, right? So they always want to set the line on like on both sides. There's not a second side to take, but you can't short this like a stock. But they're trying to set it at a line where the money will come in, and this is the line where the money will come in, where people like us will be like, well, damn, I will throw $50 on Tatum because the payout on that would be really, really good if it happens. So that's the number that they'll say will draw in the most money on Tatum. Let's chew on that for a second. Maybe it's as simple as that. And maybe there isn't a disrespect thing, or maybe it's a little bit of both. We'll talk about that in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. The Game Time app is the app you want to open up when you want to go to a last-minute event. Maybe it's Major League Baseball. I got my Red Sox hat on here. My family just got Red Sox tickets through the Game Time app. If you want to go and wait till you get closer to first pitch, you can get those tickets maybe at a little bit lower price because they tend to go down the closer you get to first pitch. Lots of deals, but not just sports. It's concerts, comedy, theater. Even though they are an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, their flash deals show up and, in the app. So you can check that out. You can get up to 60% off on these last minute deals. Zone deals, you pick the section, they will pick the seats. You can save a little bit more money that way. They've got all in pricing. So you toggle that feature and you have no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat. If you find that seat somewhere else for less, they will credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. I always say injury for some reason. It's industry. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All the real sports talk, the big stories, the experts on the Locked On Podcast Network. Real talk, real discussion. If there's an argument, it's legit, not the fake stuff. It's interesting. You should be watching it, listening to it all the time. Put it on. Leave it on at work. Leave it on in the background. It's fun. All right, Tom. Is this maybe as simple as like we're going to take advantage of the disrespect angle on Tatum, or is this simply they're not going to put him at 3-1 and make him the favorite because no one's going to bet on him to be the favorite. But also, you look at the list. Yeah, I can see why Jokic and SGA and Embiid and Giannis, like those guys. I may have a problem with Brunson, a little less so with Anthony Edwards, but there are still a lot of good players on the Timberwolves that can help Anthony Edwards. I can see Wembanyama to a degree, but that team's not going to be great. Maybe that makes his case more or less. I don't know, but I don't know. What's your take on that theory?
Well, there's probably something to it. I think to me, I think one of the things that the voters tried to do to kind of wrap this all up in a nice little bow, right, is like you make Brad Stevens Executive of the Year, and that can kind of like that can kind of like cover a lot of bases for you, I think, right? You're like,
but that's voted on by front office. That's the one that's not voted on by the media. That's a weird one because other GMs, presidents, front office people vote that, so it's not a media one.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that's the way. I think that saying to yourself, okay, Brad Stevens is the Executive of the Year. I think that's a nice way to kind of shove the whole inconvenient, the Celtics are really good thing under one umbrella of, well, Brad Stevens assembled a great team. But okay, now we can move on and talk about why these guys are MVPs, even though their team is going to get smoked by the Celtics and I think that's a big part of it. Because I mean, you go up and down the list, it's like they kind of are a super team, right? That whole starting lineup is nasty. We talked last time you and I chatted. We're like, hey, 3 of their guys are Olympians, and 4 of them definitely could have been. All 5 of their starters, if they were all healthy, are certainly Olympic level talent, right?
Yes.
That's a very good basketball team. That's, like, so there's something to that. I think it's I think it's a little more complicated than that. I don't think that's I don't think that covers everything. But I think if you're looking for kind of a way to kind of square all of this together, if you're a voter, if you're an executive or whatever it is, I think just saying, wow, Brad Stevens assembled a great team is a somewhat convenient way to do that.
The Celtics, I think, ultimately, but I do understand why Jokic, if Denver is good, why Jokic is, and everything runs through Jokic, right? And Tatum, I think, made the decision to play a certain way. Well, let me backtrack. Joe Mazzulla made the decision to present Jayson Tatum with this option and say, this is how we want you to play. If you're willing to do it, we can be great. And he said, Tatum said, I made it it was my decision this year. I didn't care what I had to do, what I had to give up. We were winning a championship this year. And I assume that proof of concept, right? This is everybody, the sacrifice worked. This is why part of why winning last year was so important, because if they didn't do it last year, then the sacrifice wasn't worth it for these guys. Tatum can sit there legitimately over the summer and be like, I sacrificed, I played this way, I gave up this, I didn't try to score all the time, I passed. And yeah, okay, you got first team All NBA, which he will probably get again. Like, that's his, I don't think his legacy is going to be harmed by not making an MVP or not getting an MVP. He's going to make these All NBA teams, and he's got at least one championship. He might win another one. So, but if you didn't win last year, then all of a sudden it becomes like, well, what the hell did I sacrifice for?
Yeah.
And so that has been proven. So now Joe can be like, okay, if you want to add an MVP to your resume, you can go for it, but you're also doing the thing that we eliminated last year. You're going against what worked last year.
Right.
And that's where Joe Mazzulla in his infinite wisdom will play the clip from 300 where that one guy breaks the phalanx and gets killed and be like, that's you, buddy. You break this, you can go for it, but you're going to die. It's the people who stick together that are going to win this and succeed. And so as far as MVP goes, there are other guys that need to do more. And Embiid, to his point, he says the C's have a super team. If I shoot 5 for 20, we get blown out, which is a little bit of a shot at Tatum, because Tatum can go 5 for 20 and the Celtics can still win a playoff game, a finals game. And
I will say, when he the 5 for 20, when he said that, it was like, I've seen Jayson Tatum shoot 5 for 20. I was like, yeah. I've seen Jayson Tatum shoot 5 for 20 and seen the Celtics win. That has happened. He wasn't wrong about that one.
He was not wrong. And I guess, so, I mean, point in Embiid's favor, point in the favor of Tatum shouldn't be an MVP. I guess the question is going to be this upcoming season, more so than why isn't Tatum higher in the odds? I think Tatum should be higher, but I don't think he should be in the top 5 even. Sure. Like maybe 5. Sure. Jokic is legit. Okay, Doncic.
I think if you're an All NBA first team player, you're kind of by definition hovering around 5, right? Like there's
that's right, and you are hovering on
first team.
Like I don't think Brunson, Brunson, that 6 at plus 1,600 is strictly Knicks money. Trying to go after Knicks money after his playoffs, right? So I don't think regular season Brunson, but then again, I don't know. Maybe Brunson continues to go Isaiah Thomas on us, and it's a different story. I do question if Embiid's going to be at plus 600. He's not even going to qualify for this, so he should be not even on the list. He shouldn't be on the board. He is not playing 60 games. If he plays 60 games, that is malfeasance on the 76ers part.
Yeah.
That's part of what you get Paul George, not just because you want to add another star to this team. You do it because you expect Tyrese Maxey to play because he's so young. He's going to be fine. He can play 80 games, but you expect it's going to be some games of Maxey and Paul George with Embiid out. And then you can give Paul George some rest here and there too, but Paul George is there, so you can still have a 2-man game, and Embiid can sit, and you're not falling behind. You're not playing for 6th. You're still playing for 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
So I do think Tatum can be higher, but I do think that he's hurt in this regard by the makeup of the team. But still, let's shift it. Joe Mazzulla still has to get this to work. And Mazzulla at 7th of coach of the year odds, that is craziness to me. That might be even crazier than Tatum at 9th of MVP. Let's take a second here and let's discuss that. All right, I got the coach of the year odds over here. Well, I had them on my phone and then it went away, but that's okay. I can get them back pretty quickly. Joe Mazzulla is 7th at plus 1,500, which is 15 to 1. When it comes to the top at coach of the year, it is John. The answer is Ime Udoka at plus 850 and Tom Thibodeau plus 850. So yeah, I know. I can see. What's it?
That's
Ime and
I have no idea why that happened.
Ime and Thibodeau tied at the top, followed by Taylor Jenkins, who, I mean, okay, great. Nick Nurse. Yeah. Mark Dagnall, Chris Finch.
Okay. Mark Dagnall was going to be my first guess.
Sure.
Chris Finch, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then Mazzulla. Mazzulla's at plus 1,500. And then it goes Jamal Mosley, Willie Green, Greg Popovich, Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd has is tied with Eric Spoelstra. So this look, I love FanDuel, but that's clearly trying to capitalize on the finals run.
Yeah.
But Ime and Tibbs at the top. Taylor Jenkins. I mean, what's Taylor Jenkins like?
So
what is he doing? You got John Morant back from injury. Great.
That's what I was going to say. All right, so here's the case for Taylor Jenkins. Team was bad last year because of injuries. If they're good this year, as a result, like the turnaround, even though most of the turnaround will be just due to like getting healthy, like, you know, you could be like, well, this team was whatever they were last year. Now this year they won 48 games or whatever. Like,
yeah. I would hope the voters are smarter than that.
I would think so. I'm just trying to, I don't know that, but I feel like that's the case for Jenkins, right? Like,
that is the case for Jenkins. And Nick Nurse, like
what is that one? Yeah.
You know, you got Paul George, like that's okay. You got Paul George. That's great. But
also if the Sixers don't win the East, like if they're not number 1 in the Eastern Conference, I don't think Nick Nurse is winning Coach of the Year.
No,
like, because if they're third, then they're just kind of where they've always been. Like, what is this great?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, and obviously they weren't there this year, but it's like if everybody kind of expects the Sixers to be like 2, 3, 4, somewhere in that range.
Right. The projected win totals had the Sixers third in the East.
Sure.
So
yeah,
that's, I don't know, if the projected win totals have you third and you finish third, you can't get coach. That's what they expected.
You know, Mazzulla at 7th is wild for a few reasons. Number one, like all these guys that we're talking about. Also, number two, if you just think of it from a narrative perspective, like Joe Mazzulla was really good all of last year, didn't get a ton of credit for it nationally. I feel like I think he's a prime candidate for a makeup kind
of
situation, right? Like
that's the point that I was going to make for sure.
Yeah, like this feels like it kind of primed for that.
When you don't get the love the year before, and look, OKC and Minnesota and those teams all had great years. So Dagnall winning, like that all makes sense, right? That's totally legit. But Mazzulla kind of like not even being a finalist, it felt like either you're going to reward the players. If you're saying they have a super team, look at how many great players they have. That should be proven by strong consideration for postseason awards. And that really didn't happen much other than Holiday and White getting all defensive love, right? So if you're not going to give the players the credit, then inherently you're saying the coach, this was a 64-win team. This was the best team in the East by 14 games. This was the best team in the NBA. And all of this voting was done before the playoff run, but this was a historically, statistically great team. So either the players are so good that they should be represented on these postseason awards somehow. Only one All-NBA guy, right? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so
because to your point, it's not just that they were the number one team in the East. It's that they were the number one team in the NBA by
a mile.
Yeah.
By a mile.
Yeah.
They were better than everybody and all season long, man. We talk about all they didn't lose. They didn't lose 3 games in a row all season.
Yeah.
At all. So they never had a prolonged losing streak. Statistically, they were at the top in both offense and defense for basically the whole season. There's just they didn't have a swoon. They didn't have like a big like dip. They just came out and were good and stayed good. So it's either they were coached up or their players were so good that I could have coached them and they would have won 60 games. Right? It's not neither of those things. You don't have just one All-NBA guy. If you have a super team, you have multiple All-NBA guys, and you have multiple all-defensive. You have a defensive player that voting is higher. For Mazzulla to be this low, I think 100% he is primed for that bounce back. If the Celtics go and have another, I think 58 to 61 wins, somewhere in that range. If they're that good again, I think all of the discussion, all of the crazy comments, the Sam Hauser, he talks to us about killer whales and, like all of that stuff, that comes back at the end of the season. And I just feel like Tatum may never get that MVP.
Yeah.
He might not. But Mazzulla getting coach of the year, like if he doesn't get it this upcoming season, if they do this again, if the voters don't look at him and be like, wow, here's a guy that we probably could have given him a little bit more love last year. This is the year to do it, because if you look forward, maybe he ends up getting the Spoelstra, Popovich kind of treatment if he's this good this right now.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, his second season he won a championship, and in his third season he wins another 60 games, let's say, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, man, the guys on the team are giving him a lot of credit. This guy is actually a really good coach. He might be a historically good coach. You don't want to screw up and not give him a coach of the year and then have 5 years from now people be like, wow, this guy's never won a coach of the year. He should be a perennial winner. You don't want to have that and have like, well, he's just meeting expectations now and nothing stands out. So he's not getting votes.
Right. And I mean, that has happened to coaches in the past too, right? Where it's like really great coaches, people are like, well, why isn't this guy winning every year? He's the best coach every year, right? Like, it's like, I know that was the case with Popovich for a while, where it was like,
yeah,
shouldn't he just be winning this every single year because he was the best coach this year? I don't know what to do about this. I think here's the thing, though. I think the voters messed up. Like, I think Mazzulla should have, at worst, had a lot more consideration. And realistically, I kind of think he probably should have won last year. Because when you look back at the job that he did, and you look at it and you say, okay, he convinced a guy who scored 30 points a game the year before to make so many sacrifices that he took himself completely out of MVP voting. That was the coach who got, that was Tatum who made the sacrifices, but the coach, the second-year coach, had the cojones to say that to his superstar who had not yet signed a big deal.
That's right.
Like, that's big. You look at the way that he preserved Al Horford for the entire season. And not only, and again, this was something that the players kind of came together and talked about. But again, he did such a great job of preserving Al Horford. And frankly, he did a great job of preserving Kristaps Porzingis too. But, things happen. But to the point that when Al Horford needed to step in for the entire playoff run, Al Horford was fresh enough to do that.
Yeah.
He had this innovative system where it was just like, the offense flowed so perfectly. I mean, how many times last year did we see, how many times per game last year did we see drive, kick, zoop, 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 swish? Like, that's the whole system was like, was kind of perfect basketball in some ways. And it's like, the coach doesn't get, I understand that Brad Stevens assembled a super team. I totally get that. I understand that Joe Mazzulla inherited a super team. All of that is true. But the coach doesn't get some credit for drive, zip, zip, three-pointer. The coach doesn't get some credit for, this team winning this many games, for these guys being this fresh, for everybody being so on the same page.
Yeah.
This is a super team and everybody likes each other. The coach doesn't get any credit for all of that stuff. Like, I think I don't know. I think Mazzulla, maybe in retrospect, I think if he wins this next season, there's a chance it's a season 2.
Yeah. Oh, I think you hear through the course of the playoffs, a few guys talk about how much they love Joe.
Yeah.
And it came well after the voting.
Yeah.
That stuff, it happened in a setting where all the voters are there because it's all the national people, all the people that cover an NBA Finals. They're there hearing Derek White say, I would do anything for Joe Mazzulla.
Right.
They're there hearing Drew Holiday say, Joe's crazy, but, he's made me grow, and that kind of stuff. Like, they've heard all of that. It's all the national folks that have heard that over and over again. So I think if this happens again, and invariably those Joe Mazzulla stories will get out again, I think he ends up getting a lot more love. I'll tell you who the real winner in here is. It's FanDuel, because we're sitting here looking at Joe Mazzulla 15-1 for Coach of the Year. That's crazy. Tatum at 28-1 for Coach of the Year. That's crazy. And people are like, you know what? That is crazy. I'm going to open up my
Please
FanDuel.
Don't ever take anything I say as gambling advice. I know I came dangerously close to offering gambling advice earlier in this podcast. I regret it. Don't ever listen to me. I don't want to cost you your money.
I am not. Look, listen. Right. I do not say I am costing you money. Please don't. I'm not encouraging you to bet on anything. You're doing it on your own. You feel free to do it. If you're going to do it at FanDuel. All of that stuff. But one
of the most stressful experiences of my life was I was in summer league, and this guy, I was at the craps table and I was rolling okay. And this guy came down and we kept putting wads of money, like had to be thousands of dollars on each one of my rolls. And I hated it so much. I did not enjoy that at all. He's like, you got this. I'm like, I don't know that I do, man. Please don't put this on me.
That's funny, man.
So don't put wads of money on anything I say on a podcast, please.
Yeah, Tom can't handle that pressure. No refunds. All right. Well, let's see how it goes. I think Mazzulla is in line for sure. I think Mazzulla is in line, and we'll go from there. All right, Tom. Appreciate you hopping on. Thank you so much. And I always appreciate you, the listener, for hopping on as well and listening and watching and Let me know what you think. Are these odds crazy? What do you think? Hop into the comment section there on the YouTube page. It's the best place to start this conversation because there are a lot of people in there, and it's a great Celtics community. I'm glad to have that on the YouTube page so Celtics fans can have a place to kind of communicate with each other. That's great. So do that there. Subscribe to the podcast, and I would love it if you shared the podcast and tell everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.